Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll Masechtas Kiddushin daf Chav Gimel. We're going to begin on Chav Beis and Beis, the third line from the bottom, Rabbi Huda Hanedua. So we were learning in yesterday's daf when it comes to the din of an Eved Kanani, which we find that some of the dinim are different than what we learned before regarding an Eved Ivri. So in this we had the following story. Rabbi Huda Hanedua, Ger she'ein lo yorshim. So this was an individual, he was a convert, and in addition to that, he did not have any yorshim. Rashi says Hanedua just means that's the place where he's from, which is the land of Kushi or Kush. And we know that in general, when you have a ger who does not have yorshim, so then when that person dies, so all their items are going to be hefker. So the first person who acquires it is going to be kainen. So Havi Cholosh. This man was getting weak. So Al Mar Zutra La Shulibe. So Mar Zutra went to see how he was doing. Chazi de Tokif Lealma. And he saw that the world was getting heavy on him, and Rashi explains he was a geises. He was leaning toward death. So because of that, Chazi de Tokif Lealma Tuva, Armulel Avde. So Mar Zutra said to the Eved of the convert, of this ger, Sholof li misanui, go ahead and remove my shoes, v'amtin hu lebesa, and bring them to my house. Now, what was the reason? So that one of the ways in which our Mishnah says that he could acquire an Eved Kanani is through chazaka. And therefore, by him doing this act, and he's going to continue to walk, maybe he lives an hour away, so when this man dies, at that very moment, this Eved Kanani is doing an act which would be a kinyan through chazaka. So that this way Mar Zutra would end up being the new owner of this Eved. So Ikadi Amri Gadol Havi. Some say that this Eved was actually an adult. Says Rashi, V'nizker bo shel yizkehu atzmo min hefker. He realized that he couldn't be acquired from Hefker himself. That's the reason why Mar Zutra wanted to immediately acquire him, so there was never a moment that he did not have a master. As Rashi says, Vagir Pirush Lamiso, Mar Zutra Pirush Chayim, Tachtov, Shlihe Eved Blo Adain Rega Echad. So it was not even a moment in which he did not have a master. So he did this on purpose when he was a gadol, as we continue to Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Zeb Pirush L'Misa, Zeb Pirush L'Chaim. And therefore he would end up being kind to him because he never had an opportunity to acquire himself. Some say actually this Eved was a katan. Udol Kabashol. The Sanya Ger Shemes, let's say you have a convert who dies. Ubizbu Yisrael Nechasav, and people are taking the possessions from this ger, and there were avadim. So the din is that they acquire themselves as b'nei chayr and they're free. It's true that gedolim will acquire themselves as soon as the master dies, misas ha'adain, and no one else was kind to him immediately after that same split second, so he's kind to himself. And therefore, Gedolim Kanawas Medichayrin, Katanim Kol Max Mehem Zach Mehen, which means, according to the sheet of Abba Shol, says Rashi, Yomer Kol Max Mehem Zach Afil Achar Zman Zach Mehen. In other words, it's not necessary for Mar Zutra to have done this because he would have been kind to him regardless, even if, let's say, he died, and then, let's say, a few minutes later, he does a kinyan chazaka, and therefore there was a moment in which this katan had no master. It doesn't make any difference. You could still be kind of a katan. But the fact is, he didn't do that because he doesn't hold of Abba Shol and holds that at Taka the guy would actually go free immediately. This katan would go free. Says Taisus, V'kasha l'Rebbeinu Tam minolei deloy Abba Shol. How do we know he doesn't hold like him? Dilma v'lam emelach to Abba Shol. He holds like him. Interesting question. Maybe, okay, fine. He didn't have to do this. So he could have said, oh, I'll come back an hour afterwards. But in the interim, someone else could have been kind to him. So maybe he did this not because he doesn't hold a gabashol. Maybe it's just simply because he wants to make sure that he's the one who's going to end up being kind to him. Okay, I entices. Anyway, weiter. The kindness has to be kesef. So let's look in the Mishnah. So we talked about how you could acquire an Eved Kanani with kesef shtar chazaka, and he can acquire himself with kesef ali de acherim, someone else giving the money. Uvishtar ali de atzma dibra meir. So a mayor holds that it has to be someone else's money. And then the Shita afterwards, on the Chachamim, says, B'kesav alidei atzmo. So it apparently have this machlokas regarding kesef. So Gemara says like this, B'kesav alidei acherim in avolo alidei atzmoi. So kesef of others, but not his own kesef. This is what it's clear, a diak of Rameir, that he acquires himself only when someone else gives the kesef, which is mashma, not if he, the Eved himself, produces the kesef. So b'maiskin, and ilema shalom edaito. If we're talking about that it's without the Eved's consent, michti shemana leil rameir di amar chayvul Eved sheitz miyad rabul cheros. V'tinina zachan adam shovafanav ve'en chavan lo b'fanav. According to the Shita Rameir, he holds that an Eved is hard to imagine, but an Eved doesn't want to be free. It's not a good thing to go free. So therefore, you cannot free an Eved Kanani unless it's done in front of him, and therefore he has to know about it, according to Rameir. El Pshita Medaito. It has to be, because we're talking about the Shita Rameir, who holds that's a chayiv for an Eved to go free, it has to be Medaito. It must be with the consent of the Eved, that he knows what you're doing by giving this money. In atzmo lo alma in kinil Eved bo rabbi. This is what it's coming to tell you. The only way an Eved can possibly go free is if someone else gives the money. Because if the Eved gives the money, then the second that the Eved has the money, it's not his, it's automatically his master's. Yihakim is seifa. We have to understand that the seifa, it says v'shtar alidei atzmo. He gives his own shtar, so that's also a dik alidei atzmo in alidei acherim lo. Someone else can't produce a shtar on his behalf. That's hard to understand. The imadaita was with his consent alidei acherim amai lo. If he's okay with it, so why can't a shtar be alidei acherim? If kesef can be alidei acherim, shtar should also be alidei acherim. V'chiteim amai alidei atzmo af alidei atzmo. When it comes to a shtar, it doesn't mean that when it comes to alidei atzmo with his shtar, it doesn't mean only, but it means even. Not only when it comes to shtar can it be alidei acherim, obviously, because he knows about it, but even alidei atzmo. V'hakamashmo is coming to tell you the gita v'yoda boyin ke'achad. This drasha, this din that we've said in numerous other places, that the get and the yad comes at the same time. Because again, if you hold that everything that the Eved has is not really his, so he doesn't have a yad to be able to makabel the shtar. And therefore the whole chiddush is that he can have a shtar and become freed with it. Even though, again, well, how is it possible? Because he becomes free the moment that he has the shtar. Says Rashi, we don't say it's not a Kabbalah. It is considered a Kabbalah. But we didn't learn like this. For some reason, Rameir actually holds it cannot be alidei acherim. But why not? How do we understand Rameir? Basically what the question is. So really it's without the Eved's consent. So therefore we have to now understand when it comes to kesef, again, he can't use his own money. But someone else, even without the Eved's consent, he can give the money. What are you talking about? I thought we said that it's a chov according to Rameir, and therefore a person can't do something without a person's consent. V'shani kesef, but it's different when it comes to money. Interestingly enough, since the whole notion of being kind of the Eved could be against his will, he may not want to be an Eved, but that's what it is. So you automatically, through someone giving kesef, that person becomes your master. So too, with kesef, that's a way to be freed. So even though normally you're right, when it comes to a chov, ein the din is when it comes to a chayiv in chaven el b'fanav, but there's an exception here because the whole initial kinyan can be done against his will, so therefore to free him also can be against his will. So is answer number one. If that's the case, so shtar nami, hay shtar l'chud v'hay shtar l'chud. So we say, well, maybe we should say the same thing about a shtar. No, they're different. They're two separate things. You can't compare that. Since you could acquire an eved bal karcha with a shtar, so therefore you should also free him with a shtar, but against his will. No, they're two different things. So hachinami hay kasmu l'chud v'hay kasmu l'chud. They're different monies. Since we had before on daf hey, tiva miyachadhu. It's the same mint. It's the same $100 bill. It's the same money. It's the same prutos. It's the same dollars. So, since when it comes to money, which money is indistinguishable, so therefore the din is that the laws apply acquiring the eved and also freeing the eved, and therefore it can be done even against his will. Mashenkin, when it comes to a shtar, no, a shtar has to be with this person's consent. Okay, and that's the reason why alidei acherim does not work, because it was without his consent. Rabbi Omer, second answer. Kesev, Kabbalah Rabu Garmulo. When it comes to Kesev, it's the Kabbalah of the master which causes it. Shtar, Kabbalah Acherim Garmulo. It's others. Let's look at Rashi. Shemakabel Rabu HaKesev Garmulo. When the master acquires the money, that causes him, that which causes him to become free, me'elav, immediately. As soon as the master gets the certain amount of money, that is what frees him. It's actually, it has nothing to do with doing something against the will of the eved. You're just giving the money to the master. He's doing it for himself. When it comes to a document, it's the eved who has to acquire the shtar. Since it's a chayiv, it has to be done with his consent. In other words, when it comes to kesef, it's the master that's receiving the money. When it comes to a shtar, it's the eved who's receiving the shtar. Therefore, they're really not the same thing. Question number one. So understand, how does it work? So the answer is either because kesev hoyel v'kanile bal karchai, maknile bal karchai. So it's the same. You can just, even without his consent, it'll still work. That's why, according to Rameir, he holds that kindness atzmo b'kesev alidei acherim, even though he didn't know about it. And kesev kabos rabu garmelo, the master accepts it. The ein shlucho shel eved. He's not like, there's nothing with the shlichus of the eved, and therefore it's different than being makabel a get or makabel a shtar on behalf of the eved. Okay. So that's the sheet of Rameir. Again, Rameir holds when it comes to kesef and shtar, they're different. When it comes to kesef, it's he can go free alidei acherim and shtar alidei atzmo. The Chachamim oimrim the kesef alidei atzmo. Let's look at the whole Mishnah. When it comes to kesef, it can be his own money. And the shtar is alidei acherim, other people's money. And then they throw in uvachi had kesef mishal acherim. The money has to be someone else's. Okay. So Chachamim oimrim because of alidei atzmo. Because of alidei atzmo in alidei acherim lo. So he can only use his own money to free himself, but not someone else's. Amai nehi granted nami dishalom adaitoi, that's without his consent. Michti shemanahu rabbanan dermizachusu sheitzu betachas yadu rabbi acheres. As we saw in Gittin, it's actually a good thing according to this the machlokes Rameir and Tanakam over there, whether or not it's a schus or a chayiv for an eved to go free. According to the rabbanan, it's a schus, it's a good thing. Tanina zachnodem shovafanav ein chavan elo b'fanav. He holds that you could do it even without his consent. So because it's a good thing. So therefore, I can understand when it comes to kesef, l'chayra, it should work alidei acherim. It's hard to understand why it wouldn't be that situation. How could it be alidei acherim lo? Because it could be done shlom adaito, because you're doing the eved a favor by freeing him. It means you could free also alidei atzmo. Alidei acherim works, because you're doing him a favor. And the chiddush is alidei atzmo. What's the chiddush? The kamash one dieshkin levid below rabo. Because how is it possible that the eved can give his own money? Because it's shaykh that the eved could have money that doesn't belong to the master, and that's how he can free himself. That's a chiddush. So you hachem a seifa. B'shtar alidei acherim below alidei atzmo. Understand? I thought we said that the get in the hand comes at the same time, so then it should work alidei atzmo. That it works alidei acherim and alidei atzmo. Hakamash with chusu. Well, eved sheyetzim yad rablo cherus. It's a chus for him to leave. It's hard to understand. According to the Tanakhama, what we're saying is that it works by kesef, whether it's the eved's money or someone else's money. My star, his money, his star, or someone else's star, which means it always works in all circumstances. So why doesn't it say it that way? That's not what the Mishnah says. So it's probably not the case. Ella. But kesef, when it comes to money, it's true. When it comes to kesef, he can use his own money because he holds yesh kinyan kesef eved below rabo, that an eved could actually have his own money. And alidei acherim works because it's a schus. So, however, b'shtar alidei acherim, it only works by others. Below alidei atzmo. But interestingly enough, according to the shita of the Tanakhama, it does not work shtar by other people. So that is the opinion. Rav Shimon ben Elazar who the sign of Rav Shimon ben Elazar Omer af b'shtar alidei acherim v'lo alidei atzmo. He says when it comes to a shtar, it's actually alidei acherim and not his. B'shalosh machlokas b'davar. There's actually a three-way machlokas discussing this entire thing. So what is the shalosh machlokas? So first let's see this parts of Rashi, and then I'll consolidate it. So Rashi says, Rameir islay b'kesav alidei acherim. Rameir holds that kesav can be given by someone else, but not by himself. V'afil shul medayatu, even without his consent, as we said, let's say the first teretz, is because it can be done bal korchai. V'lo alidei atzmo, he can't do it himself because ein kinyan le'eved below rabo, because you cannot acquire something with yourself. So therefore, according to Rameir, it works only alidei kesav is alidei acherim, but not alidei atzmo. Mishtar alidei atzmo v'lo alidei acherim. The shtar is the other way around. Again, we're talking about shlo medaito. It's against his will, and therefore he's not allowed to. Alidei acherim can do it because it's a chov. However, he does hold the shtar works by himself. Shtar he can give. Rav Shimon Elazar, the second opinion, islay bein b'kesav bein b'shtar alidei acherim. He actually holds that what not only by kesef but also by shtar as well, other people can give it. Why? Because he holds it's chus, and therefore because it's allowed. However, he holds the eved cannot do it by himself because he holds in kidul eved below rabo. And when it comes to a shtar, he does not hold of the din of gita v'yoda ben kachad. And then the Rabbanan of our Mishnah holds kesef bein alidei acherim bein alidei atzmo, v'chein b'shtar bein alidei acherim bein alidei atzmo. So in other words, according to the sheet of the Rabbanan, all four situations work. So to complete it, Rameir holds kesef alidei acherim and shtar alidei atzmo work. 2 out of the 4 scenarios. Rav Shimon ben Elazar says kesef v'shtar alidei acherim works. 2 of 4 scenarios. And the Rabbanan say no, all 4 scenarios work. Okay. Omer Rabba, my time Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. So why does Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar say that it works by kesef and shtar alidei acherim? Why can other people do it? So he said because he holds the eved himself can't do it, kesef, because any kesef that the eved has belongs to the master, and he does not hold git v'yoda ben kachad. So why are other people allowed to do it? So Gomer lo am isha, he learns out of gzera shava. Ma isha, when it comes to a woman, ad she to get l'rishus she'en shaloi, it has to come from rishus, which is not his. Af eved nami ad she to get l'rishus she'en shaloi. It has to be not his. Says Rashi she'en shalo shel rabo. Not to the eved, but it needs to be, therefore, alidei acherim. That's why it has to be alidei acherim, because it has to be she'enu shaloi. So just like the man giving the get it has to be gone from him. So too, it has to be gone from him, namely the Eved. Therefore, it has to be Ali de Acherim only, never Ali de Atzmo. Okay, boy Rabba. So Rabba asked the following question. Continue Chav Gimel base. Lil Rab Shimon ben Elazar, again, who holds that you could do kesef, you can free the Eved with kesef or shtar, but it has to be Ali de Acherim. Eved Kanani Mahu Shnas Shlich HaKabel Gita Miyad Rabbo. Can an Eved Kanani be a shliach to accept a get on behalf of his master? Kivan de Gamer Lo Isha, since he learns out this Gezer Shava Keisha, therefore he has the same din as a woman. What does that mean? And Rashi says, V'oisa shliach HaKabbalah Keisha. He can be a shliach HaKabbalah just like a woman, because a woman could accept a get. She could also make a shliach to accept the get on her behalf. So this Eved would also be able to accept the get on her behalf. On her behalf, he could be a shliach HaKabbalah. Odilma isha di'ihi matzi makabelas gita shliach nami matzi mishavia. Maybe the reason why it works in general is because since the woman is allowed to accept the get, so since she, the principal, can accept the get, she can appoint a shliach to do so on her behalf. However, Eved di'ihu lo makabel gite, he cannot accept his own document because shtar alei atzmo doesn't work. So shliach nami lo matzi mishavi, maybe he can't make a shliach. So Basta the boy Hadabashi answer the question lo meisha keisha. The din tak is like an isha, which means that he can be a shliach to be makabel the get on behalf of his. He can be a shliach HaKabbalah. Hani kahani. When it comes to the Kohanim, he says it has to be when you have the Kohen, they must be doing the shlichus of Hashem. These are the shluchim who, if they're actually our shluchim, so when it comes to avoda, I'm a Yisrael, I'm not a Kohen. I can't go into the Beis HaMikdash and do the avoda of a Kohen. But nonetheless, they could do it on our behalf. So the question is, we never find any other situation where they can't be that they're my shliach, because if they're my shliach, we never find that works. That you can't do something, you can appoint a shliach to do something on your behalf. It has to be something that you can do, then you can appoint someone to do that which you yourself could do. But the truth is, what do you mean? According to what we're saying, it's not true. We find a situation where, according to the sheet of Rav Shimon Elazar, the din is that the Eved Kanani is not allowed to be makabel his own document. Shtar alei atzmo doesn't work, but yet he's allowed to be makabel a shtar on behalf of someone else. So how is it possible that if he can't accept it for himself, that al shliach would work? So therefore, that's the question. This is Velohi. Yisrael lo shaycha b'taras karbana is klal. The reason why it has to be that the Kohanim are shluchi d'rachmana is because we have no connection to karbanos. A non-Kohen is totally not allowed, has no shaychus to be able to bring karbanos in the Beis HaMikdash and to climb on the mizbeach or to be makter ketayris and do all these different things. We have no connection whatsoever to doing that avoda. However, Eved shaykh begin. And Eved, there is some connection to these documents. The Sanya, near in Hadavarim, it appears, She'eved Mekabel Gitu Shel Chaveroi, Miyad Rabo Shel Chavero, Avolo Miyad Rabo Shelo. It seems that the din is that an Eved could accept a get of his friend from the hands of the friend's master, and but he can't accept from his own. In other words, let's say he has a buddy who also is a slave, but they're not slaves to the same master. So the din is that we actually will allow him to be makabel to get this freedom, this document of freedom, on behalf of his friend who is an Eved. Which means that we see when it comes to an Eved, he does have some connection of being makabel a get, or being makabel something. And therefore that's the reason why he could be made into a shliach. Mashenkin when it's Kohanim, we have no shachas whatsoever. Says the Gemara, and then the Chachamim say, it has to be other people's money. So it's difficult, especially as you're saying Tanakama, it works bein alei atzma, bein alei cherem, bein mishtar, bein mekasef. So name b'hav kimich. Let's say this is the Machlokes Rama and the Rabbanon. The Rameir Savar in kin melevdable Rabo. According to him, he says that when it comes to an Eved, you can't acquire something unless it'll automatically go to the master, and which is the reason why Kesef alidei atzmo does not work according to Rameir. The ein kin leish b'lo baila. Similarly, a woman cannot acquire anything that does not automatically go to her husband. Rabbanan savar yesh kin le'eved b'lo rabba v'yesh kin leish b'lo baila. So again, the main thing we're talking about Avadim is that according to the Rabbanan, it's not true. He holds that it's shaykh that an Eved could acquire something that it does not automatically go to the Adon, and therefore because of that, according to the Rabbanan, they hold that you could taka give Kesef al yedei atzmoi. The Eved Kanani can give the money himself. That must be the machlokas. Whether or not you hold this din of yesh kin Eved b'lo rabbo. Some rabbo and Rav Sheshes, no, maybe not. To kuli alma ein kin Eved b'lo rabbo. Really, maybe everyone, even the Rabbanan hold that you cannot be a kind of something yourself, rather automatically goes to the master. So the question is, if that's the case, how is it shaykh that the Rabbanan could possibly say the situation that when it comes to the Rabbanan, they say that Kesef al yedei atzmo works, but why? If you hold ein kinyan le'eved b'lo rabba, how does it understand? Ein kinyan le'isha b'lo ba'ala. V'hacha b'may skin. Here, what are we talking about? This is going to be question 2, question TA20, TB21, exact same question. So what is the machlokas between them? That someone else was acquired $100, let's say. The Amrulay, and he said to them, I'm giving it to you on condition that I'm only giving this money on condition that your master doesn't have rishus. So because of this, it's shaykh that even though normally a normal situation, the din is the money automatically goes to the Adain. But over here, before the money was given, there was a stipulation that's saying the only way we'll say that it actually will go to you is if it does not go to the master. So therefore, it's basically saying it cannot go to the master. So since he said that, Rameir Savar Ki Yarmale Kani, once you say you acquire it, Kani Eved, the Eved is Kainit, and then immediately after is Kani Rabbi. The master automatically acquires it. As soon as you say acquire it, it's done. Once he says afterwards, on condition, that condition means nothing. Loy klon karmele said nothing. Since he said almanas, ahanile tenai, the condition actually works. Verabelezer oimer, he says no. Kolki hagavna de koliyamalu pligi de kani rabbi. Even in a situation where you would say almanash ein lo rabach or shusmo, still the master would definitely get it, even according to the opinion of the chachamim. So then, how is it possible then that the chachamim could say that kesev al yedei acherim or al yedei atzmo works? The hacha b'ma'askina here we're talking about kigain de aknile achermana. Someone else came up with this money. Yarmalei, they said something different. Almanash shetetzi b'lecheres. This money is for this guy to go free. Rameir savar ki yarmalei kani eved v'kani rabbi. So it goes automatically to the master. What he says, this condition afterwards, it's too late, and therefore doesn't mean anything. Rabbanan Savi no. He wasn't koinit. He said it's only so that this guy should go free, and therefore until he goes free, it's not a kinyan. And therefore, the only way that he'll be able to be a koinit is dafka with freedom. And therefore, because of that, according to him, it will work al yedei atzmo. So, of course, the push-up shot is that you would just say the machlokas is whether you hold yesh kinyan le'eved b'lo rabbo. But even if you hold everyone holds ein kinyan le'eved b'lo rabbo, you can still possibly have this machlokas. So let's stop here. We'll take question 2. It has to be other people's money. So, what are we saying that it's talking about? Assuming again everyone holds ein kinyan le'eved b'lo rabbo. So either he gives the money and he says almanash she'ein lo rabcha or shusbo on condition that your master has no permission in it, or almanash she'tetzi bo lecheres on condition that you should go free. Ad kan.